Hello YouTube fam, welcome again to Right Life Kenya, a channel where we share uplifting content to nourish your mental health and general wellness. This is Right Life Kenya, Words That Build with Mary Frida Kiaira. Today's video is about something we are all familiar with, and that is stress. Did you know that even unborn babies can experience stress in their mother's wombs? So, how do we cope with stress? First, we're going to talk about what stress is. Stress is how our bodies and our minds will react to life's challenges, life's threats, and anything we face along the way that is unpleasant. So it is how we react emotionally or physically or mentally when we face hurdles in our lives. Now, stress is a normal part of ordinary life. It is something we cannot avoid, whether it be in our workplace, in our relationships, and even in the things we do on a day-to-day basis. There are both good and bad ways to cope with stress. Today's video is about uncovering how we can cope effectively with stress so that stress then does not have a negative effect on how we live, on our wellness, whether physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Now, since we can't avoid stress, wisdom demands that we figure out how to cope with it in a way that we are living our best lives even when we are faced with stressful situations. I'm going to be sharing 9 ways on how you can effectively cope with stress. Let's begin. The first step in learning to cope with stress is identifying what stresses you. So you have to sit with yourself and work out the situations in which you feel stressed. Is it something about your workplace? Is it one of your relationships or your relationships in general? Is it your children? Is it your spouse? Is it your health? Is it the fact that maybe you haven't yet gotten a spouse? Is it a breakup? So assess what it is that stresses you, because once you identify what stresses you, then you can be able to work out how to effectively cope with that stress. Number 2 is figuring out what coping mechanisms work for you. Now, every one of us is different, and the things that relax me when I am stressed are not the things that will relax you. So this video is just about letting us know the various options that are there so that you can figure out yourself what it is that helps you to cope effectively with stress. For example, I like to read books when I'm stressed. I find that getting lost in the world of books will ease me and tune my mind out from all that stresses me. And when I go back to my reality, then I'm able to face whatever it is that I was stressing about. Now, you may not be a book person. You may be someone who enjoys taking a walk or having a swim. You may be someone who enjoys journaling. You may be someone who will enjoy a good movie or something of the sort. Or you may be someone who enjoys ziplining, like a friend I know. So whatever it is that calms you down and allows you to get from your daily routine, even if it's 5 minutes of doing something that you love, can then help you to be better equipped to then cope with the stress afterwards. Now, this is where most people are tempted to have the negative coping mechanisms. This is where people might be tempted to engage in hobbies that are detrimental to their health or their well-being. So you have to be careful that in choosing a coping mechanism, it is one that affects your life positively. It is one that builds your emotions. It is one that builds your mental health. It is a coping mechanism that builds your spiritual health and things that will not cause you harm in the long run. So it is not finding escapes in things that will bring you detrimental effects in the long run, but it is about even making a choice on what is right in terms of how to cope with stress. So if you find yourself engaging in negative coping mechanisms, you can try to wean yourself off this by replacing them with positive ones. So if you find that You probably enjoy a drink to cope with stress, and you know that drinking can lead to addiction, which then complicates your life and your health. Then you can choose to replace that with a positive coping mechanism that is healthy for you and that nurtures your well-being. Some of the other examples of coping mechanisms can be deep breathing. For instance, if you find yourself in a high pressure meeting and by the time the meeting ends, there is steam coming out of everyone's ears, you can go to a secluded place and practice deep breathing. This usually calms yourself down and you're able to collect yourself and go back and handle whatever it is you need to handle. It could also be engaging in your hobbies. That is a very good coping mechanism that will build you. Or it could also be prayer and meditation. So that also helps. There are many other coping mechanisms. I'd love to hear from you what you use to cope with stress in the comment section, even as we go through the other steps of how to cope effectively with stress. The third step is practice self-care. Now, this cannot be insisted more in the current age we are living in, where we are busy from morning to evening with different things and different aspects of life. But self-care is very key in being able to manage stress and being able to manage life's challenges. So what is self-care? Self-care simply means doing things that are good for your body, for your mind, and for your soul. It means taking care of yourself in a wholesome manner. It means doing things that will feed your body, for example, exercise. It means doing things that will feed your mind, for example, reading good books and consuming content that is uplifting and that encourages you, teaches you, and all that. And it also means feeding your soul. For example, any time spent in prayer or reading the Word of God or meditation and such things. So last week we said that you can only love others to the extent that you love yourself, in that the Bible is telling us to love others as we love ourselves. So loving yourself means then you take care of yourself, your body, your mind, and your soul. And when you're well taken care of, we always hear people say this: you cannot pour from an empty cup. So when you're taking care of yourself well, then you're able to pour into the lives of other people, whether it be your family, your spouse, your children, your siblings, or your parents. You're able to pour into your business. You're able to pour into your workplace. You're able to pour into the lives of your friends. Self-care is not selfish. I will insist. Our lives are busy, but we cannot neglect to take care of ourselves. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is the first step in being able to operate from a point of fullness and be able to do whatever it is that you have to do effectively. So I'll mention some self-care practices that might seem pretty common to you, but these are things that sometimes we forget to do or we forget to take very seriously. For instance, getting enough sleep is part of self-care. Exercise is part of self-care. Eating nutritious foods is part of self-care. Drinking your 8 glasses of water is part of self-care. Going out and basking in the sun is part of self-care. So these seem like pretty simple things, but they are things that come together to build and nourish our bodies and our minds so that we can operate from a point of rest and from a point of fullness. Most of what I've mentioned is physical, but self-care can be physical, it can be social. That is connecting with people through fellowships and hanging out with your friends and your family. It can be spiritual, which means the time that you dedicate to spend with God on a day-to-day basis, the time that you're reading your Bible, that you're fasting, that you're praying, the time that you're spending in solitude, meditating on the Word of God, or reading good Christian material, that counts as self-care as well. It can be the time you're serving in church, whether in any of the ministries that you're gifted in, that is self-care as well. And there's also emotional self-care, where you take care of your emotional side. Yes, so self-care is wholesome, and taking care of yourself is part of learning how to be able to better manage stress. The next step in learning how to effectively cope with stress is time management. Now, when you have a lot on your plate, it is easy to feel overwhelmed and stressed. And for fellow people like me in their 30s, this has become the norm, feeling overwhelmed and stressed, because what is on our plate has kept being added onto, and we still have the same 24 hours. So it used to be easy in school to manage your time, especially in high school and primary, because you have a bell and it tells you where to go when. But once you become an adult, your bell is time management. You are in control of your own bell, your own schedule, and what you do on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. There's a lot of expectation on you, whether financially or emotionally. There are people that are depending on you. You have stopped being the dependent, and now you're starting to become dependent on in very many aspects of life. So how you spend your time is then key to managing the stress levels in your life, and how you juggle all the responsibilities that you have effectively, and you're able to deliver on each of them and still be well rested. So time management then becomes our bell. So this is where the skills we learned, like keeping time for appointments, fall into play, prioritizing your tasks, setting deadlines that are realistic to when you will complete one task and go into another, and breaking your work into small, manageable bits. Now, I like to do this by having a to-do list every day. Those who know me know I like to plan a lot. So a to-do list helps me be able to see how I'm going about my day. It gives me great joy to tick off the things that I have been able to achieve as I go about a day. So mine is a really simple to-do list. I just write down the things that I'm supposed to do in a certain day, and then I star the ones that are pretty urgent, the ones that are pretty complex, or the ones that I need to do by a particular time. And then I start doing those. And every time I put a tick to them, I feel a sense of accomplishment, and I feel very good and motivated to continue throughout my day. So this can be something that you do if it works for you. There are many planning apps on our phones that we can install to help us with this. Or you can figure out how to do it differently in a way that suits you. But managing your time is a really key step in learning to cope with stress. Time management helps you to work efficiently with clear direction. This is where I started, this is what I've achieved, and this is where I am going. So even in the menial tasks, because for me, I just write down everything. If today I am sorting the kids' clothes so that I can see which ones aren't fitting anymore, and I have a work project, and I'm supposed to call my spouse at a certain time, such things, I just write them down so that I'm not jumbled trying to do 1,000 things at once. And the days I have not written this and I find myself overwhelmed, I just seclude like 5 minutes to sit down and write down what I am stressing about, in terms of what is it I feel overwhelmed about, what is it I was supposed to do that I'm not doing. So by doing that to-do list even in the middle of the day, then I'm able to slow myself down, slow my roll, and get into what I'm supposed to do. Now, so far, this is working for me. There's a time I didn't have to-do lists, and I forgot some tasks, and especially when I got into the stage of motherhood, and the baby's schedule is what mattered more. The baby is the boss. So my life became a jumble of trying to juggle everything else I wanted to do against what my baby needs and wants at a certain time. Working efficiently and with clear direction helps you not to be overwhelmed, and it helps you to feel productive, which is a good thing. The next step is delegate. Now, this is where I struggled most, because I think I don't know. I don't know if it's being a firstborn or being used to do things on my own that I did not learn the art of delegation very early. But delegation is very, very key in managing stress in your life. So when you find yourself overwhelmed by the things that you're supposed to do and your deliverables, whether at home or at work and so on, delegation is a skill that will help you to get the small menial tasks off your back so that you can concentrate on important tasks or tasks that will not happen if you yourself will not do them. For instance, for many, many mothers, you're handling your child, you're handling yourself, you're handling your husband, you're handling your baby. So you need to figure out, and you're handling your work. Sorry that I forgot that. So you need to figure out a system where all these things are running and running well. And it is very, very hard to split yourself into all these roles. It's very hard. The demands of today's life are very many. So you need to sit down and at the level you are, figure out what it is you can delegate. There are some things you cannot delegate. So you need to figure out within yourself what it is you can delegate to another person to be able to be doing as you're catering to the things that require your attention and the things that will not be done by anyone else. So by doing this, you get the load off your back and you're able to do other things. And by the end of the day, things have been accomplished and you did not have to do all of them. When I became a new mother, I tried to do it all with my first child. I tried to run my home, cater to my husband, cater to myself, cater to my child, cater to the chores, and all while I was trying to do my master's project. And it was overwhelming and stressful. And I can confidently say that I did not have to go through all that if I had asked for help. And this is to say there were people willing to help, and there were avenues I would have used, like maybe hiring a house manager. That would have assisted me, but I don't know why I held on to the mentality of this superwoman thing, and I tried to do it all, and it really, really messed me up. So I'm just sharing this so that if you are in that space and you're able to find people who can help you, do so. It is not wrong to ask for help. Do so. It is okay to ask for help. It is fine to accept help when it's offered to you. It doesn't make you any less of a mother, of a wife, of a friend, of a daughter. Ask for help when you need it. Delegate. Delegate, delegate. And I'll insist that delegation is a skill, because even when I got to hiring a house manager and I had not learned the art of training, instructing, showing, then delegating and allowing the person to operate from a point of trusting that they're able to do what you have shown them to do, or just letting go of the noose a little bit so that they're able to operate. I found that with my first house manager, I was still micromanaging. I was still handling so many of the tasks. I think I even confused the young girl because she was unable to know when to do what, because I had so many instructions on what should be done and how it should be done. And I'm not saying you let go of your household and let your house managers do anything they want. No. I'm just saying that delegation to some extent will mean that you give the task to someone else and you go to another task without having to over worry or micromanaging what it is that they do. Now, there's a lot of factors that play about in this, but learning the skill of delegation is very, very key, or learning to ask for help when you're overwhelmed and stressed. Number 6 is use technology to your advantage. These days, there are so many apps on our phones that we can install to give us reminders on a day-to-day basis. They can give you reminders to get up and take a 5-minute or 2-minute walk so that you stretch your legs if you've been sitting in your office desk for too long. We have apps that schedule the breaks for you, the breaks that you need to be healthy, even as you go about your day working and doing all that. We have apps that offer meditation sessions and stress management apps. All these things, since we use our phone most of the day, why not use it to help us to cope with stress? Now, away from apps, there are many appliances that you can purchase to help you to be able to automate some tasks, whether at home or in the office. So figure out the apps you need, figure out the appliances you need and can afford, and plan on getting them to ease your load. Number 7 is practice gratitude. Now, I don't know if you know this song. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Yeah, I'm out of practice. My voice is a bit groggy. Forgive me for that. But I love that song because it reminds me to keep focusing on what is working, what is positive, as I try to work on what is not working, and surrendering to God even what I cannot control as I move about life. I'm not trying to preach positivity mindset, no. I'm trying to say at any given point, if you make it part of your lifestyle to practice gratitude, you will find that you lean more towards the positive in terms of even when you face the hurdles of life, you're able to move past them because you believe that there is good after those bumps on the road. So practice gratitude. Try to take a few minutes to reflect, and this could even be in prayer, to reflect on what is working and be grateful for that. Even just 2 things that are working in your life every single day, you'll be able to change your mindset and not only focus on the stress and the negativity. So counting your blessings is a really, really, really good way to learn to cope with stress. You can be grateful for very simple things. It can be that goal you achieved. It can be that tick on your to-do list. Like I told you, I really celebrate when I'm able to tick off things in my to-do list. It could be you're celebrating a relationship in your life or the people around you, or even just peace of mind. That's something to celebrate. So when you focus on this, you'll find that you shift your mind from the negative to the positive. And this can greatly reduce stress and increase your overall happiness as you go about life. The 8th step is have a solid support network. Now, talking to someone you love about what you're going through can be very stress relieving on so many levels. This person can offer you a listening ear, and believe me, once you share something out of your system, it just feels better. I know that from experience. When I talk to my friends about what I'm going through, it gets out of my system and I'm able to now think clearly. This person can offer you helpful advice. They can also give you a fresh perspective into whatever it is you're going through. So having a solid support network is a very good way to cope with stress. Remember, the devil uses divide and conquer to isolate us and make us feel as though we are alone, as though we are the only people who are facing the problems that we have in this life, as though no one cares, so that when we are alone, then he can load us with negative thoughts and we are focusing on the stress and all that, and we are not able to move forward. So having a strong supporting network can help you to be able to cope with stress. So please don't be shy about leaning on those who care about you when you're stressed about anything in life. People are not talking to each other these days. Call a friend, tell them what it is you're going through. Let them listen in, let them be able to help you work through your feelings and your emotions. Call your mom, your dad, your family members, your siblings. I'm sure you can find someone to call. One way of building a solid support network, because I'm very sure whoever is watching this video might feel like maybe they don't have someone in their life who they can term as a solid support network. One way to build a solid support network is to engage in fellowship with other believers. It is to find a church, a Bible-believing church, and engage in small groups that you can share life with, people you can get to know, people who will become your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, people you can lean on, especially if you're walking away from where your family is or you have estranged relationships within your family setup. And for any person in this life, it is very, very key that you have a fellowship of believers that you're walking with, that you're able to talk to, that can help you when you're in trouble, and people who you can also help when they're in trouble. So this is one of the tips I'll give for forming a solid support network, especially for those who feel like they do not have it at the moment. My last step in terms of learning how to cope with stress is seek professional help. Now, if all these steps I have shared are not working for you and you still feel overwhelmed, I will encourage you to seek help from a professional. Extended periods of stress can be a risk factor to mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. So it is very key for our mental health that we are able to cope with the stress of life positively in ways that nurture our mental health. Professional counselors will help you reduce and manage your stress. They will also help you work out any other underlying mental health issues that you might have. They are trained professionally to be able to do that. Being overwhelmed with stress manifests in very, very many different ways. It can manifest physically, mentally, and emotionally. So these are some of the symptoms to look out for if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by stress, or if you want to know if you're able to manage your stress effectively. Some of the physical symptoms include headaches, insomnia, fatigue, stomachache, body aches, acne, and digestive issues. So these are some of the physical manifestations of overwhelming stress in your life. Some of the emotional ones include irritability, sadness, apathy, anger, and generally feeling overwhelmed. Some of the mental symptoms include depression, anxiety, ideation of suicide, food and eating issues, compulsions, addiction, substance abuse, and so on. So if you find that many of these symptoms are showing up in your life as a result of stress, then it is high time you seek help from a professional counselor. So where can you get help? There are nonprofits that offer free counseling. Some hospitals and clinics offer free counseling. Some churches have free in-house counselors. Some online platforms have free counseling. Or you can still see a paid counselor to have a session with and be able to diagnose you and help you to manage your stress in the right way. So that wraps up today's video on how to cope with stress. Remember, stress is a part of life, but it doesn't have to rule your life. By identifying the source, finding positive coping mechanisms, practicing self-care, time management, delegating, using technology to your advantage, practicing gratitude, having a solid support network, and seeking professional help, then you're able to be on your way to a life where you're able to manage and cope with stress effectively. Let's face the challenges together and embrace a more balanced, peaceful lifestyle. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Also, share your own tips in the comments below on how you cope with stress in your life. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. See you next week.